Jalaluddin Rumi expressly differentiates between form and meaning. Form is the outward appearance, whereas makna or meaning is the inner essence of a form. According to Rumi, a form is shadow and the sun is the meaning. If everything that appeared to us were just as it appeared, the Prophet who was endowed with such penetrating vision, both illuminated and illuminating, would never have cried out, "O Lord, show us things they are." The distinction between form and meaning in Rumi's view ultimately confirms that meaning is that thing as it is known to God himself, and because God transcends all forms, the meaning of all things is God. The form, surah, in the Sufi worldview is not the same as form in Aristotelian term. Form for the Sufis is something material, while the meaning is synonymous with hakikah, reality, or the essential principle of things. Rumi states, in face of meaning, what is form? Very contemptible. Know that the outward form passes away, but the word of meaning remains forever. In Rumi's eye, this visible word, whatever things, thoughts, ideas, beliefs, and rights are forms, a collection of forms. Each form is sustained by its meaning in God. However, their meanings are not separate and don't stand independently, but in every form there is a unity of meaning, and the unity of meaning is God. One should not be deceived by the various forms that appear to the sense perception, lest one should be deceived by the changes of forms. He should comprehend that a form never has its own reality, but it is only the appearance of the meaning that lies behind its external appearance. Once again, Rumi assures us, because forms are oil and the meaning is light, don't you ask why anymore. If the form is for the sake of the form itself, then ask why. It is unacceptable if the heavens and all that is in it are mere forms. Go beyond form, leave names and old designs, find meaning. Sadly, humans, because of their bodily attraction, are neglectful of the meaning. Even though humans often realize that there is a supreme reality behind the outward forms, they are still trapped and fascinated by the forms themselves, likewise in religion. The sympathetic and inclusive standpoint to accept various forms disappears, for humans always perceive everything on the level of form and stop there, so they ignore the essence of all forms, namely meaning. Rumi has many poetic metaphors regarding this. The people of this world see secondary causes and think they are the origin of everything. God's saints see the actualities as they are created and come into being. These secondary causes are veils upon the eyes, for not every eye is worthy of seeing his craftsmanship. One must have an eye which cuts through secondary causes and sees that all fails. If a believer is willing to understand the inner nature of the forms of religions as suggested by Rumi, he becomes a true wise man who has sympathy and is inclusive of the various visible differences in the religious forms. While faithfully holding on to his own belief, he can deeply respect and appreciate the diverse beliefs of others. Every believer always worships a form as he perceives God, who is actually formless. Rumi asserts, if you think he is present in a form, he will run to the spirit. Look for him in the sky, he will shine on the water like the moon. If you look at the water, he runs to the sky. Look for him anywhere, he will give you a sign in the place where you are looking for him. But he will keep running to the place where there is no place. Know that the Absolute is always free from imagination. Rumi explicitly states that God whom men perceive is the result of their conceptualization and experience of him. The perception is also wrapped and colored by the culture and doctrine received by every believer. One's image of God is of course limited, and it is only a form of God, while in reality God is infinite and formless. Rumi reminds us, since all forms were created, do not identify God with any form, do not associate him with any form. If that is so, who is worshipped by all people is the same divine being. But some have set their face towards the tail and have lost the head, although the head is principal. Because of merely paying attention to the tail, each religious group often blames each other. Here we understand that what every group perceives is only the tail. If they see the head, they don't consider other religious groups wrong or heretical. In the end, according to Rumi, in the afterlife, God will show himself and will show that his mercy is superior to his wrath. Inevitably, everyone has his own form of belief. An image of God in one doctrine is indeed different from the image of God in another doctrine. In fact, every believer must have an image of God different from others. Quotes, "Your calling God formless or formed is vain without your liberation from form, unless you yourself are freed from sense perception." We must realize that God we believe in is a formed God because he manifests himself in visible forms. In other words, every religion becomes a form of God's manifestation, which means one religious group cannot judge another religious group from the point of view of its own form. As long as the judgment is based on their exclusively theological view, undeniably what is seen is a difference. Therefore, we must quote-unquote leave aside the jug-shaped cosmic water. For Rumi, the formless God is the infinite God, and that is how he is. If one tries to limit God and proclaims, "My God is the true God," then he becomes superior or even more superior to God, and this certainly deviates from the true nature of a believer. Rumi cautions that one should not easily fall into foolish claims. God is not the kind of king for whom one voice is sufficient. If every atom in the world became God's herald, they would still be unable to properly proclaim his truth. It is emphatically that not even any atom on earth can express his infinite and formless truth. Moreover, one should not look at the secondary causes that appear in a form, but look directly at who is the mover of all forms. Rumi states, "Whoever looks at causes becomes a devotee of form. Whoever looks at the first cause finds the light that sheds meaning. Form is dust, a gleam of light that emanates from the moon. Turn yourself to the moon, don't pay attention to the dust. How should the flame fly without the wave? How should the dust rise to the zenith without the wind? Since you have seen the dust, see the wind. Since you have seen the foam, see the ocean of creative energy." God worshipped by every believer is a formed God and is only foam and form. And everyone who fights over foam and dust doesn't understand who moves dust and foam. Every religious system is a speck of dust that appears diverse and different, but is driven by the same wind. In this regard, Rumi has been clear enough to remind us that what people have been arguing about so far is a mere form. One says the truth is a circle, while the other says a triangle. As a matter of fact, the truth was a mirror in God's hand. It fell and broke into pieces. Everybody took a piece of it and they looked at it and thought they had the whole truth. Although all the pieces of the mirror originated from God's hand, one must realize that a piece of mirror, in spite of part of the whole, is not the same as the whole mirror. No one can say this is the truth which is in my hand while blaming other pieces of mirror. Every mirror is a form, who drops it is the meaning. Let's go to the meaning. Quotes, "How long will you make love with the shape of the jug? Leave aside the jug's shape, caustic water. Having seen the form, you are unaware of the meaning. If you are wise, pick out the pearl from the shell." Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the comments.